How am I going to kick this off? Like, all right, Thomas, we're here to talk about my favorite technique.
Well, Thomas,
basically,
let me intro.
Okay.
yeah, Thomas is good at this.
I don't know if I am, but thank you.
Hi, my name is Sam Lenz. You probably know me from my extensive amount of painting. I've been traveling and teaching and competing for a very long time. It's taken me many places.
Cool. So, I saw in one of your videos that you kind of, not even on purpose, but started to wet blend on your miniature, because that's a big part of how you paint.
Yeah.
How do you approach that with the Fanatic paints?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Yeah, man, like, I'm a big fan of wet blending, or as it's known in more ancient times, alla prima, combining two colors together on the surface and creating everything in between in a gradiated form. And the Fanatic paints, with their pigment density and heavy body, work very well for this. I think the confusing part for new people is the word wet. Wet is because the paint is not dry. You're not adding water to it. I want the paint to maintain a sort of sticky consistency almost, so it stays where I place it, the wet blending happening in the middle. I've just got a mixture of black and barren dune, and we know that that little tug of war happens in the middle when you kind of start moving back and forth. I know it looks like I'm just throwing paint around, but there's kind of a lot of experience. Familiarity will build speed as well as the instinct to know just how much you can grab to stretch over an area. And just like balancing out a recipe, if I feel like the light portion is not enough, I'll just go and add more of whatever ingredient's missing. Go back and forth. It doesn't matter if you start with a light or dark tone first, because you're going back and forth. Pull the paint around. A little bit of a finesse to it. You kind of lighten, kind of lift a little bit as you're mixing the colors together.
You make it look very easy, but that's because you're very good at it. It is about brush control as well. Like it is a part of it.
Do this 10 times, right? Your first attempt is your first attempt. You're learning.
Yeah.
And your last one should be 9 times better than the first. Even if you know how to do it, you have to practice the fundamentals of it a little bit.
But a cloak would actually be a good thing to practice on for wet blending.
I'm glad you said that. Yeah, like a cloak is nice. I always suggest to people when you're first beginning, take on a textured surface. If you have a feathered wing, a base that's just been covered in dirt, or maybe a wolf pelt.
Yeah.
Because those textures will help to hold the paint in place where you're placing it.
That's true. Yeah.
And then going onto a smoother surface is kind of the advance, and then being able to wet blend diluted glaze-like consistencies is the step past that.
Yeah. When you do it, you usually start with the biggest surfaces to begin with. Like you said, that this is the first step, because you have the room to actually mess around with the paint.
Generally, like I look at the models and they're more basic geometric shapes. You've seen like those like wooden sketch dolls that you can kind of position. It's a man made out of like circles, rods, and cones. That's how I'm seeing this, because there's all this great texture packed into these sculpts and stuff. But like before I get into the ligaments and the wrinkles on top of the knee, I need that thigh to just have a general gradient on it. So I like to say, like, you need to see the forest through the trees. You need to look at the entire thing, and you can kind of hold it back and see if you're getting your general volumes in place before you get the tunnel vision and get sucked into those tiny details.
Yeah.
That comes a little later. Basically, what I want to convey is originally I would lay down a 7-color progression on my palette, mix up 7 different puddles of paint, and the more I started wet blending, the less colors I had, less mixtures I had on my palette, because I'm like, okay, wet blending, I can stretch out the whole gradient. I can get those 7 colors, smashing it together right on the model. And we also know, you're wet blending, you've got this tug of war going on. I'm stretching 2 colors out. Sometimes it can become a little thin in that boundary. Maybe starting the model off with a colored base coat, kind of the root tone, so that's still showing through any thinness. I think some people see wet blending as this, wall. That's something they have to run up against, but like getting familiar with it, just take a night to learn it. you might be surprised that you're accidentally wet blending already. Because if you're looking what I've been doing on the palette here, like the way everybody mixes their colors, instead of mixing them like this, try mixing them together like this. Well, yeah, you might be, just play with it on some paper to get the feel for it, honestly. Like, a lot of miniature painters never made a painting. That's okay, but you should give it a try.
I've never done that. Maybe I should give it a try. Yeah.
All right, let's go.